All right, we are back. The only thing we got to do on this today that I have parts to do is we're going to do these two bearings on this side, which it's a good thing I'm doing them because they're locked up, kind of. Like I can't. They're not. They're not long for the world. Actually, when I was pulling this thing up here yesterday, this wheel was locked up and refused to turn. So, yeah, start here, and then we get this done, we'll bring the basket down, start working on it. All right, wheel and hub disassembled. Everything looks good in there. The spring, everything's all intact. I'll have to clean all the nasty petrified grease out of there before I put it back together. And where did I put it? Not there, there. The pin, I'm guessing because the bearings were locking up, has seen better days, so I'll have to, which it's just an off-the-shelf clevis pin. I'll have to see if I can find another one or get a new one of those for it. But anyhow, same deal as yesterday. I'm going to take the torch, scarf the lock collars off so I don't have to fight them, and knock this bearing in. This is going to be interesting because I may end up, because I don't know how this sprocket comes off, and I don't want to try to fight this stuff on the frame. So I may very well end up having to cut these bolts because there's not enough room to get them out. You know, like that. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. Or maybe I'll take the torch, blow a hole through that bearing so that I can knock the shaft that way, and then I can get the bolts out, and then we can assemble the shaft and assemble this stuff back on. We'll see how it plays out. Alright, so in order to get this out and save parts, I just took the torch and kind of made the center of that bearing cease to exist. So now, you can get these bolts out, except they're going to be hot. There we go. And we're just going to let that thing sit there and cool down for a hot minute. Alright, I got this cross taken out of this universal so we can press on it, or press on the shaft. I don't see a single thing that holds this sprocket on. So I'm wondering if there's a shoulder machined on that axle stub, and this just goes on, bottoms out against that shoulder, and then it's held on with that, just it's captured between that shoulder and this yoke. So I guess we're fixing to find out. I don't know. It's 30 ton and it's not moving. I don't know about this. Hmm. All right, let's see what pressure and heat does. Oops. Just drop 5 ton. 6 ton. 7 ton. Alright, it's all apart. We were stuck on the sprocket. Interesting note. The it's still warm. Universal yoke is not keyed to the shaft. It is strictly relying on the pin, which is, that's so far of all the ones I've taken off, that's the only one that hasn't had a key in it, which is odd. But you can see the drag marks coming off that shaft. The shaft and the sprocket had basically become one with each other. There was a zero interference fit there, so but it's apart. We'll get it cleaned up so it'll slide all back together nice and hand tight, and then we can put this back together minus the universal yoke. All right, I got everything cleaned up, ready to go back together, and then in the process all that, I had a call. I had to go get some straw down out of the barn, so I figured while I was home I would get some lunch. But we're here to put all of it back together now. Never fails. You have better part of 2 hours knocking it apart and cleaning it, or actually it was 2.5, almost 3 hours getting this one axle apart, and I'll probably have it back together in 15 minutes. But all things considered, other than that sprocket, which really wasn't even that bad, nothing on this thing has honestly put up all that much of a fight coming apart, which is kind of impressive considering the condition it was in and how long it had potentially been sitting outside before I got to it. all I can say is, hopefully right now it's a happy hay rake, because, or it better be a happy hay rake, because it's clearly gotten more love in the last 2 weeks than it's gotten probably in its entire life. Just judging by the way things are. There. You can actually roll it over by hand. Before, it was everything I could do, just grabbing onto the tire and rolling it over. Alright, this side's all back together. Everything went together by hand, no beating, no nothing. So, that's nice. I put this hub back on. Instead of a pin, I used they're 7/16. I used a 7/16 by 3 bolt with a stover nut. And I like that a lot better, because it's a lot easier to just get in there and spin a nut on versus trying to get in there, because there's no room really for a pair of pliers to get in there to bend a cotter pin over. So we're going to leave that bolt in there, and then when I put the tires on, because I can't get to it without pulling the wheel off, but when it comes time to put the wheel and tire on this side, I'm going to swap this side out for a nut and bolt too, just because it makes it a lot easier to take the hub off. So yeah, other than the drive chain, which that's down in the barn, I'm actually gonna bring it up, throw it in the solvent tank, and let it soak until it's time to use it, because I'm pretty sure it's actually a brand new chain. I'm wondering if they put a new chain on it when they put that new pulley on there, but it's just a little stiff. So I'm gonna let that soak. But we are basically as far as we can get on this without those 2 universals. So I'm going to pull this thing out, go up, get the basket, bring that down here, and we'll start in on it, which shouldn't be nearly as involved in it as this, because there's not as much stuff on that has to come apart. That's mostly just cutting old bad fixes off and welding new nice clean fixes on. Alright, so here's the basket. I think we're going to end up separating the upper frame from the basket itself, just because of the work that needs done. But what we have to do this, get the drive shaft off, get the hubs apart, get the bearings out of the hubs. At the very least, I want to get the bearings out of the hubs today so I can go try to hunt some down tomorrow. They're just tapered bearings. They shouldn't be anything too out of the ordinary. Fix or clean up this attempt at a fix. Probably just, I'll need to cut that bolt out of there that they welded in, and then grind that off flat and probably bridge it with a plate. Fix that. Once we get this upper frame off, cut this piece off, fix this mess. These holes here are worn to the point where probably need to have a plate welded. They're close enough to that radius. I don't know if you can get one underneath, but probably weld a plate on top to reinforce both those holes. Need to do something different about these eye bolts that they're used for lifting, because this one's just about had it. This and this need a bushing put in them. This one, the bushing's completely missing. There's actually supposed to be a little, you can see it in the manual, We'll skip the parts book because it's easier to see in here. Which picture is it? That picture. If you look in that picture right there, it's not coming up very well. There's supposed to be a little suspension spring between that tilt lever and the basket, so it's not supposed to be bolted solid. That spring is completely missing, but we could probably cut off another piece of that big spring that I got and use that. It looks like in the picture maybe it looks like at most it's as tall as that angle iron is ish. So we're gonna make one of those. This angle iron needs straightened back out because it's supposed to be straight. I'd like to figure out a way to make this ball swivel greasable, because I'm guessing those are, you're probably gonna have a hard luck finding a new one, so we need to make that one last as long as we can. It does not look like the ball comes out of it near as I can tell, so we'll have to figure out how to do it in situ. But first things first, let's get this drive shaft out of here, and we will get the plates unbolted from the hubs and get the hubs out of it. And, well, might only do one, because according to the parts book, those bearings should all be identical. Correct. 3 and 4. Interestingly, doesn't actually show any sort of seal for that. 3, 4, 5. 3 cup bearing, 4 cone bearing, 5 hub disc, 2 hub, what's 6, 7, 8, 6 washer, 7 socket screw, 8 shim. Oh, so apparently that's how that must, apparently those bearings are shimmed. That must be how they set the bearing, take up the bearing slack, as there must be shims behind this. That's going to be interesting. Might have to end up making some shim washers if we can't get this thing to come out right. But yeah, I don't see any grease seals, which is interesting. So anyhow, let's work on getting that shaft off. All right, so I'm working on this pin, and there's a keyway in the shaft right there, but I can't see a matching keyway cut into the yoke. So it appears, at least at first glance, we get it apart, this thing relies on the pin to deliver all the driving force. Well, if that is the case, it's twisted the pin, and it's about half a hole off. It took me a second to figure that out. So I can't get the pin driven out. So I'm hoping I can put some heat on this thing, and using the drive shaft as a lever, hopefully maybe spin it on the shaft and get the pin in line, and hopefully, fingers crossed, get the pin driven out. Alright, so drive shaft's off. I had to, this is the pin that came out of it, which, that's like a 1/4 inch pin, 1/4 inch hole in the shaft, 3/8 hole in the yoke. the math ain't mathing. So what we'll probably do is punch that hole out for 3/8 and put a 3/8 pin back in it, because, and again, doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless this yoke has been changed at some point and it doesn't actually belong here. There's no keyway in that one, which let's just right quick here. I don't know, those are a lot. Yeah, that one's smaller. I was gonna say, this one is the... No, never mind. That one used a key, no pin. So I don't know why they got a key slot in there, but no key in that, unless that, like I say, unless that yoke's been changed at some point and it was replaced with the incorrect one. But anyhow, I don't know. I don't think we have anything. I don't think we have a way to broach a keyway in that thing either, and then trying to clock it would be a bitch. He'd have to physically make a jig to clock it correctly, because it looks like you need to be exactly 90 degrees. Anyhow, if we punch that thing out for a larger pin, I'm sure it will last just fine. Clearly that 1/4" pin was doing the job for the most part, so it wasn't all the way twisted off. But anyhow, now we have to get that hub out of there. Now, the other thing I noticed, this has got the wrong bolt in it. It's supposed to be, that's got a hex head in it, or just a regular hex head bolt. It's supposed to have that with that washer. So that could, oh hey, there's that missing. I knew I couldn't. Missing tooth retainer. I couldn't find it. Okay. Damn ya. Yeah, I'm gonna need an extension. This bastard is gonna make me pull all the tine bars so I can disassemble that whole disassemble that whole basket. Because there's not gonna, I can't get the discs far enough forward to get that shaft and everything snuck out of the hole. Doggone it. I might maybe be able to do it if it was on the rake and I had gravity helping me and that thing settled down into the bottom of the basket, but like this, probably not gonna happen. Which I see that, like that right there, that bracket's loose. We got to take that apart, figure out why anyhow. So I guess we're just gonna pull the whole thing apart. be up here so you can see the whole thing, huh? Well, that escalated quickly. But it's a good thing it did, because all 10 tine bar bearings are shot. And then it has these little, I don't know if the steel spacer was originally vulcanized to the rubber, or if this was originally supposed to be 2 pieces to begin with and you just replace the rubber. But these go in here to isolate the tine bar bearing retainer from the disc. About half or better of those rubber pieces are missing. So in the end, it's a good thing it had to come all the way apart, because we were going to end up tearing it all the way apart anyhow. So I'm going to have to get tine bar bearing out real quick. So I got one to match up. I'm guessing they're going to be the same as like a New Holland 56 or 256. I can't believe that there's that many ways to build a tine bar bearing. And I'm going to... Man, no, those are different. I was going to say I'd go see if New Holland has something similar to this, but New Holland uses the star wheels and they don't have a bearing like that. Or a bearing retainer like that. Or maybe I just call... I don't know if New Holland tine bar bearings would be like that or not, because they're kind of an entirely different deal. I'll have to see if I can I'll have to see if I can look online and find a parts book for a 256 Rake and see if they're similar. Yeah, I'll pop one off real quick so I got something to look at, and we'll go from there. Alright, I got a bearing out. Measured it. It does come up as the exact same measurements as a bearing for a 256 New Holland Rake, 47 by 14 millimeter. So should be able to go to New Holland and get those. Well, bastards are salty and I need 10 of them, but it is what it is. I may call, just for shits and giggles, before I go down in the morning, I may call Maybaugh and price them out through them, just to see. But anyhow, now we can get these hubs apart and see what they look like. Alright, let's see what we got inside here. Shims, cone washer, bolt if I can get it back off the socket. Shims. Woodruff key. Question is, what is the shaft? appears I don't know if it just presses out the back or not. So that does not look like any sort of tapered roller bearing I've ever seen. It's got a part number on it, so we definitely don't want to hurt it. I gotta believe that shaft will push out the back. Alright, I got the hub cleaned up. There's no grease seals listed because it uses tapered bearings with integral grease seals, part number LM67000L, which looks damn near like, I think they're a bigger bearing, but it looks almost like the Coulter bearings on the Oliver plows, because they had an integral grease seal like that too. But anyhow, I found something interesting while I was scraping the grease off. That's an old butt of a hand-rolled cigarette. Don't know what that was doing stuck in all that grease, but it was there. The stuff you find. But I've got to get those cups knocked out of there and get that bearing. Got a little foobarred accidentally pressing it out. So, but I got to get that off of the shaft. And that it was running loose long enough, it actually boogered the shaft up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to hurt anything in the long run. So, but I'll get this knocked apart, get that one apart, cleaned up, and see where everything lands. This washer, I'll get a new bolt. That washer is going to be real easy to replicate because we have a chamfering bit in there that matches the angle. So it'll be super easy to just turn a new one of them up on the lathe real quick and correct that mess. So, but onwards. Well, would you believe me if I told you this side was fucked? The drive side, don't mind, this is off the this is off of this side, so ignore that. So basically, because they lost the correct bolt, shim, spacers, washer, everything off the end of this, it was running so loose, it busted that hub, washed the keyway out. When I took it apart, the Woodruff key, well, the key slot looks like that. The Woodruff key was laying in there at like a 30-degree angle, all wedged. It tapered the end of the shaft. The shaft's supposed to be straight, now it's got a very aggressive taper to it. The hole in the hub has a slight taper to it, but not nearly as bad as the shaft. And it, oh, don't mind that either. We were Dad and I were discussing things, and it busted the hub out, or the bearing hub out. So I plugged all the part numbers for this in the parts depot. It came up nil. They didn't even recognize the part number. So what we're gonna do, this can be brazed up easy enough and just turned back down to size, so that's an easy fix. Everything else about the hub is fine. This, the easiest way to fit, I mean, we could try to weld that up, turn it, and the kicker of it is, this is raw casting. It looks like they replaced it once before, because this never had paint on it. But the easiest thing to do, just shit can that all together. We're gonna get a blank puck of steel and just machine one out of a solid block of steel. So that's what we're gonna do there. And then that shaft is wore a little bit. this shaft is wore a lot, but we're just going to make 2 brand new shafts for it. And rather than woodruff keys to make life easier, not have to spend money on special tooling, just going to put, as long as they make one that'll fit our needs, put a rectangle key in it, so the ones that are tall, that way they don't have any, or try not to roll out. And then we're also going to, before, when you assembled this, you pressed your bearing on the shaft, put your shaft in, press the top bearing in, and then you had all those shims and this special washer and all this hoopla, and you threaded that into the end of the shaft and squeezed the bearings up that way. But in doing so, you never actually were able to pull everything up tight. You could just pull it up to where the bearing load was correct, but there was nothing to keep everything tight like it could, which is why, and I'm guessing that was a common ism with these rakes, the hubs loosened up like that one did. And my buddy Mark's rake, his, not so much on the idler side, but his on the drive side, is whopped out just as bad as this thing is. So I'm guessing it's a common problem on the 207s. So rather than doing it that way, if anybody remembers way back to working on the 270, the center section, those bearings were put together with spacers in between them, and you use the spacers to set the bearing load, and then you just drew everything up as tight as you can get it. That's what we're going to do here. You're going to stack everything up, measure, make a shim, so that way when you put this together, you cram everything up tight, and the spacer is what keeps the bearings spread apart enough to set your preload. That way the hubs can't loosen up again. So if you're keeping up. So yeah, new one of those, fix that. And then we're going to take this is the one that goes right here, and we're going to broach a keyway in it. That way when everything goes back together, and we're just going to mill this on the new shaft, we'll just mill it out for a square key, since the cross pin will be taking part of the load. Doesn't really necessitate a rectangle or a woodruff key or whatever, but there will be a keyway broached in this. We do have a broach and everything that'll do it. So we're gonna make that more better. So yeah, basically that's where we're at for today. And then tomorrow I have to go get 4 of those cups and cones ordered, see if I can come up with 2 of those crosses and 10 of those bearings, and figure out something for these. So, which I got to look in AGCO parts book. I think the new idea rakes were designed very similar to this, and I'm wondering if they have something similar to that in there, maybe, hopefully. That being said, I don't fully understand the reason for the rubber, unless it was just to take up any possible misalignment issues. But anyhow, so I got to come up with that stuff tomorrow, and then when I get tomorrow, that's probably going to take me a good chunk of the day, because that's going to be a lot of running around. And then we will work on the basket frame tomorrow, because we'll be waiting on parts for everything else. So I think we'll just continue on that for tomorrow, since I'm not working tomorrow anyhow, and then we'll just make that all one video. So I'm going to clean my mess up and call her square for the night. So that's it, or we'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right. I'm waiting for the forklift to warm up so I can get the basket back up here. It's like 9 degrees outside. I don't know what the wind chill is, because that wind is getting after it, and it's snowing, and it's like blizzard conditions. You get out on the road, you got visibility anywhere between 100 yards and maybe a quarter mile at most, sometimes less. So, and we're supposed to kind of have weather like this on and off, like it's supposed to stay. It ain't supposed to get very warm. We're not much out of the teens, and a lot of single digits and some negative stuff for the next couple weeks, and lots of snow, and winter is really wintering. But this morning we had, for the most part, success. Got bearings ordered. I'll be able to pick those up Friday. I mean, they'll be here sooner, but I'm out of town in Indy Wednesday, Thursday, so I'll be able to pick those up Friday. I got the small universal joints for the axle. I got tine bar bearings coming from Shoop because they were $11 cheaper than anywhere else. So those will probably be here, weather depending, tomorrow or Wednesday. The only thing I didn't even bother calling around, is these little rubber bushings. According to the parts book, the steel bushing is separate, and then you got the rubber isolator. I need to, that sucker shrunk. I think what I'm going to do, because it doesn't appear that there's like any sort of, it just feels like rubber. It doesn't feel like there's any fiber in it or any sort of, I think it's just literally just rubber. So I'm going to, and we can do that here while I'm thinking about it. Need to mic it. Figure out if I can just get some stock. That's a nice round number. It's like 40 thou. $406, $405, nice round number. So if I can just find some rubber that's about that thick, and I can just, if we got a hole saw close enough, just cut them out with a hole saw. Just doubt you're gonna find a gasket punch that big. But punch the blanks out with a hole saw, and then you'll have the pilot hole to run a drill through to get it to where it'll fit. The bushing will fit inside, and I'm just gonna make them. It'll be. I did look up the part number, and Parts Depot shows 5 of them in Colorado, but I need 20, so. So I'm gonna look on McMaster Car and see what they have as far as stock rubber. And we'll make those when the time comes. But anyhow, give the forklift a few more minutes, and then we'll get that basket up here and do a little bit of fab work. Alright, first thing I want to do, get the upper frame separated from the lower frame. I'm just going to torch the bolts off because I'm not even 100% sure. Like, whatever that is threaded onto, I don't know. And I guess while I got the torch out, probably see if I could scarf these welds off and knock that ugly crap off of there, and try to scarf that bolt out of there. Yeah, basically start getting stuff prepped for welding and making look nice and not all hillbillied up.
Whatever you want to call that part.
All right, I got all of the scrap junk cut off of this, and I got this. There was a crack. It was cracked all the way through, all the way around the angle. So I took a slitter wheel and cut that crack back open so that everything would separate and come back in line. And now I got to throw a tack on, a good heavy tack on there to throw it together so I can finish prepping it. And I think what we're going to do is just take this hole and weld it completely shut and then re-drill it. Because that's just, yeah. And then, well, I'll explain the rest of it when we get there. But first thing, I got to throw a tack on there so I get everything out of the way and clean that hole out so I got something good. And I'm going to gouge that so I got a good fillet to lay weld in. And then I got to weld this top and bottom so I can grind the top off smooth because there's going to be a block welded in here. So... Alright, I got this hole all welded shut. Everything's ground off, prepped. Letting that cool down so that I can actually touch it and measure it out, lay the hole out. This one, we're going to leave it. There's a little crack right here, which is probably how that started, and they didn't fix it and they let it go, and then it migrated around. But we don't need to worry about that one because we're going to be doing this. So while we're waiting for that thing to cool down, we're going to be making our repair parts. This is some 1/2x2. I don't even know what the heck it's from. It's rusty, but it'll blend in that way, right? And come on. Didn't quite get her tight enough. There we go. Alright, so before on these, there's steel block welded to the underside, and those steel blocks right there, they came down here. There was a bushing in them, and you could pull the bolt up tight with the bushing, but then you were strictly relying on the strength of this leg to keep the bolt from trying to rock. Now, what we're going to do is have these welded in there like that. So you're spreading all that over a 2-inch wide gap, or over a 2-inch wide area that's going to be thicker. And now it's also going to be welded into the bottom leg so that you're not it's going to be less likely to flex. And then the bolt is going to be, it'll come all the way through here. There'll be some extra, and then there'll be a jam nut to keep the bolt from trying to back out, loosen up, and it'll have more bearing area so that everything will be less likely to flex. Is basically what we're going at, and it'll be less likely to crack out, and basically we're just trying to make it better. Because if you're going to fix it, you might as well fix all the weak points. So, whoops. So I just have to lay that hole back out over there, punch that in. We'll weld these blocks on, and then we can go start fixing that corner.
Alright, ready to weld. Because of the way that they rolled this angle, it must have rolled this way out a little bit, so in order to get this square to this and make sure that everything's parallel to the ground, I had to shove these shims in there, kind of toe clamp, so to speak, to get this and this at a 90-degree angle to each other to wire that's later. So, we'll buzz that in.
All right, there we go. That ought to make things nice and tight and not nearly as flexy flyer. So, and if you run a 207 or own a 207 and you use it, check those holes for cracks, because that has got to be a common ism on these rakes, because my buddy Mark's is broken the exact same way. His is cracked at the top of the holes, which the holes are so far up in the angle to begin with, they didn't leave a whole lot of meat up there for the basket to hang from, so stands to reason. Now, as far as this corner goes, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the torch and blow that gap out, just get rid of all that shit completely. And then I'll take a little piece of flat stock and put it in there and bridge it, weld it in from the back, and then just take and fill that gap in with weld. Because I can't really see. That's the cleanest way I can think to do it. And then you fill that in with weld, and then you can grind it off flat. This is all factory weld right here. That belongs there. This not so much. So yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. Yeah. So that I end up with a cleaner cut and I have more control over it, and I don't want to burn the serial number tag, I'm gonna use a grinder instead of the torch. It'll be a little bit more controllable that way. It's all cut out, prepped. First piece of flat stock clamped in. Laid a straight edge here and here to make sure it's in line. And thing helmet. I guess the one other thing I should check-ish. I would imagine weld to weld, we're at 30, and I would imagine these are a little different. we do that, we're gonna go with it's good. It didn't really separate when I cut that weld out. It cocked itself. So, but that stripper bar should have held it in place. So we're gonna go with it's good. But I'm gonna weld it here and here to hold it, and then I'll cut a piece to go here, and then get all that welded in, and I flip it over, weld it back in, and we'll be good to go. All right, got it all filled in, ground off. It's plated back here, so it's way stronger than that bolt they had welded in there. So yeah, looks a lot better. Well, that should take care of the basket itself. Those were the two main broken things. So now we can turn our attention to this. I need to straighten this angle iron out. That's step number one. And once that's straightened back out, we can bolt it, get it bolted back on here so that it's one piece again. All right, I got this off. So now I can go down and press. See if she'll come back out straight. It's going to be interesting. Luckily, everything from here back is good. So, I also noticed this is bent. This is supposed to be straight, at least according to the pictures. Yeah, that's definitely not factory. Yeah, that's got to be straightened out. So, we got a little bit of work. When the oil's cold in this thing, it takes forever to flow out of the reservoir down into the pump. All right, it is a hell of a lot better than what it was. It's still got a slight bow in it this way, but the dang thing, like, I would almost have to support it here and clear down here, and I don't have any way. I mean, you can tell sitting on it's close enough. And then I can't get this little whoop-de-doo out of it. There's a little wave in it right there where it was stretched real bad, and if I get that pushed out, it wrinkles here, and I opted for flat down here. Good enough compared to what it was. So now I can bolt that and that back together. All right, and before the swivel ball goes back on, I want to make it greasable. So I got the ball turned up with the hole in line with where I want to drill. I'm going to put a 1/4 28 grease zerk right there, so that it prolongs the life of this thing. Hopefully, in theory. Alright, I think I've made it about as far as I can make it for today because I gotta be back to my grandparents at 6 o'clock for dinner. So I gotta get things cleaned up and put away. But so far everything went back together on this perfect. All the holes lined up. This is now greasable, which I don't know if it's gonna help it, but it most certainly can't hurt it. So all we got left to do here, make bushings for these blocks. This needs straightened out. The handle is twisted, so that needs taken off, straightened out. Needs a bushing there. This bushing's actually not in bad shape, so that one's fine. We just need to straighten everything out. Need to make new lift links because this one has just about had it down here on the end. And then need to, there's not really enough room on the bottom. Yeah, I mean, I guess there is, because that hole is probably supposed to be all the way up there. Anyhow, need to make a plate and either weld on top or on bottom here to reinforce that hole, because both of them are 8 out. And then once that's done, this thing can, this is ready to go. That's ready to go. We have all of our bearing, or we have all of our crosses for the drive shafts, so those just have to get put back together. So other than that, it's just doing all the machining work to get that hub straightened out. So we're in the home stretch. I don't know if it's gonna be one more video or two, but I wish I didn't have to go to Indy for work this weekend, because I hate traveling. I hate traveling for anything, really. I'm not a traveler. But having to travel for work is really annoying when I have stuff to do around here. You get a job where you want to make big bucks, you got to be willing to travel for work. That's why I never got a job that makes big bucks, because I hate traveling. But anyhow, yeah, good progress. So, like I say, I'm gonna get cleaned up. So with that being said, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.